Welcome to China Manufacturing Decoded from Sofeast, the podcast where we take you through some of the major topics facing importers and manufacturers in China today. Hi everybody, this is episode 72 of the podcast. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Adrian from the team and joined by our CEO, Renaud. Hi Renaud.
Hey Adrian, how are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good. We were just talking about the restrictions in place for traveling around in China and Hong Kong for foreigners. I guess a lot of the listeners who've got suppliers in China are interested when it might be easier to go there. And the simple answer is probably it isn't.
No, it is not. There's a little bit of change for people based in mainland China. They can go into Hong Kong more easily, and that's about it. Even for residents, Hong Kong residents, going into Hong Kong is weeks in a hotel. And for non-residents, I understand it's not possible. And for mainland China, it's basically the same story. You have to go through weeks, at least 2 weeks in a hotel, and you might not be able to get food from outside or anything, and you don't know what hotel it will be in advance. I mean, that can end up in a it's pretty much like prison. And you have to have the working permit and all the paperwork. That's a lot of hoops to jump through, definitely. And if you're just thinking of going there on a business visa, then forget about it.
Yeah,
we are still far from China opening up. Now, there was some communication. There's going to be the Winter Olympics in China in February of 2022. So they say that for sure they would keep things closed until then. That's what they're planning. There are also some other communications that say that probably until summer of 2022 nothing would change. But basically we don't know. The Olympics are definitely a big milestone. I would not expect them to become much more accommodating before that. And after the Olympics, who knows? Well, maybe they're going to have a lot of trouble fighting the new variants that are much more transmissible, much more contagious, and they actually become even more restrictive. So really, we basically don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of working on the assumption that during the spring and summer period of next year, things probably a little bit better than in the winter period. I'm talking about in the Northern Hemisphere, because, respiratory diseases are kind of they're a bit worse in the autumn and winter, aren't they? As people are indoors and it's sort of more stuffy and the weather becomes drier and colder. So if there's going to be a change, it's probably more likely to be, in another sort of like 6 to 8 months' time, I guess.
Well, I hope you're right. However, they've been fighting a very, very hard battle. When was that? About 3 months ago, it was in Guangdong province.
Yeah.
And about 1 month, a month and a half ago, it was all around Nanjing, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Shanghai, and that was really in summer, when the temperature is highest, and they've had great difficulty putting it back in the bag. So let's see.
Well, I mean, from the perspective of looking out from China and looking what's going on in the rest of the world. But yeah, I think if things get grim in the winter period, they certainly won't be. They'll be reluctant to open it up to foreign travellers. But yeah, as you say, getting a business visa at the moment to go and check on a supplier, even if you said I'm willing to go and do a 2-week hotel quarantine, well, good luck even getting the visa, because they're just not handing them out really.
Yes, it's not easy.
No,
it's not easy. Starting the process of getting a work visa in China from scratch is kind of painful.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, if it's legitimate, you're really hired by a company in China, then and and they want to do all the paperwork and assist you through all that, sure, why not?
Yes.
I mean, it's going to work. There's no reason.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So very limited. Well, that's kind of a somber note to the start of the episode, but we've got to keep it real and keep everybody abreast of the situation when it comes to visiting China and Hong Kong suppliers. So the topic of today, however, is still China focused, and recently on China Law Blog, and we've mentioned some of their blog posts before, and I'm sure everybody listening is perhaps aware of China Law Blog, but you can go check it out. Steve Dickinson wrote a post on China and the first to market fallacy. So I know that you've got some thoughts on this and some reactions to it, which I'd like to go through in this episode. So when we talk about the first to market fallacy, that's the first port of call for today. So what is the first to market, fallacy? What is the first to market argument when you're developing and manufacturing a new product?
Well, let's say you have an idea for a new product, you see a need for it in the market. There's nothing like what you have in mind really on the market, and you in that case, the typical entrepreneur is like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead with that as fast as I can. I'm highly confident it's gonna work, and I'm gonna put all my energy into this project, and I want to be the first one, because if I'm the first one, it would be much easier to reach out to maybe some influencers in the space to who will review it. Maybe even for free if the product is really cool. It would be much easier maybe to have a little bit of press or mentions on blogs and so on. Is going to do sort of a buzz, and that's going to help sales, and it's going to help establish my brand, my product name as a brand in the market, and we're going to get what they call a share of mind, and in more and more people in that space. Mm-hmm. And then the second one who comes along, well, everybody will see them for what they are. They will just be a copycat, a follower who doesn't innovate, and they will not be able to charge a premium like us. It will take them time to come to the market. We'll have ripped the market. We'll have distribution deals in place, and so on and so forth. It's going to be hard to push us out of the market. And then best case for them is like Coke and Pepsi, and in many other industries, you have the number one has roughly twice the market share of the first one, and usually commands a little bit of a premium in the marketplace. Okay, so that's the general theory. Brand recognition, loyalty, perceived image as a leader, and as a better offer, and things like that. And in some cases, when you say Hoover, you think of vacuum cleaner, because they established that in people's minds.
Yeah.
And people even say, get the Hoover sometimes, right?
Oh, very common here in the UK.
Right. And then maybe some people say, well, bring me the Dyson, when they mean, bring me the bagless vacuum cleaner, right?
Yeah.
So that's an innovator that came into that space and carved out a new niche by innovating, right? And in that case, well, they have patents and a lot of things to keep counterfeiters away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure if there's like competing brands in that space for bagless vacuum cleaners, but that's the dream. That's the dream of the innovator, right? He owns, he creates and owns that market segment, basically, right? So if Dyson had not spent the time, I'm sure that his company has patents, plus of course the trademark on the brand and things like that. If they had not spent the time and the money to do that, give 6 months to 5 other companies, and they're going to be on the market also competing with them.
Yeah.
And they might make a splash at the very beginning, but then very fast, all the distribution channels and everything are going to be stuffed with cheaper versions of the product, and then they can no longer charge a premium. If they still want to be relevant, they have to keep innovating, get version 2, version 3, and so on. So keep putting a lot of money in R&D, turning out new models and things like that. So they have to keep investing, and their advance will never be more than 6 months anyway. So that's the general thinking. If you go to market fast, you're number one. You can have great benefits. Now, it's not always the case. Let's be careful. That's the problem here. Is that sometimes if you're in a market, especially in B2B or in B2C, but you don't make a big splash, just because, even if you launch, even if you do a big crowdfunding campaign and you do a lot of Facebook ads and you're on 10 blogs and 5 influencers do videos about you and things like that, maybe only 10% of the target market is aware of you after 3 months on the market, right? So in that case, you have a Me Too product that comes into play, and they still have 90% of the market to go after that's not even aware of you, right? So there's really some limits here, some limitations in that thinking. But if you are on the market first and you have strong IP protection, it does help you. And that's the point that Steve Dickinson makes in his blog post. He's like us. He talks to people who are developing new products, and a lot of them tell him, well, we're focusing all our energy to get to market first, and if it's successful, we'll worry later, about maybe a design patent, maybe a trademark registration, maybe this and this and that, and having a good agreement with the supplier so he doesn't cheat us and sells our product in our back, and yada, yada, yada. Okay, the reasoning here, and I can understand that, the reasoning here from the innovator, from the entrepreneur, is going to be a good problem to have. If we're in the market and we're successful already, that would be great. If I spend time and money to do things by the book, my product is going to be on the market 3 months later, 6 months later, and then maybe someone else will have launched a similar product, and then my whole project would not be successful. End of discussion. I want to be successful first, and then I will deal with the consequences of having taken some shortcuts later, right? And I think we really need to look at the context here and what market they want to launch their product into, and how easy it would be for a competitor to come in and really steal the market from under them. In some cases, I believe that approach kind of makes sense. If it's not a big market. If the fact that they are successful is not going to be very visible, right? So no Kickstarter, no Indiegogo, no. Even if it's on Amazon, that's a problem. Yes, on Amazon, there's a lot of ways to scout the offers and say, oh, something here, popped up and shot up a lot. So on Amazon is okay if you go with low volume. Again, if it's a small market, then maybe some other companies will not really notice. Or if you don't plan to have a big premium, if you think that the way you manufacture is really the cheapest way, even if someone wants to do a quick and dirty copy, there's no way to have like cheaper material, cheaper process, cheaper distribution. So, and you're not planning to make a lot of margin. Well, in that case, it's not that interesting to copycats too. It doesn't mean you will not have copycats, but it's less interesting, so less likely you will have some. It also makes sense if you want to go fast on your version 1, but your full product idea will only be your version 2 or version 3.
Mm-hmm.
You have a long roadmap in mind. That goes back to what we were discussing last week in the previous episode with Andy Bartlett, and about trying to release a more simple version 1 if possible, learning a lot from that, getting some feedback from the market, reducing the risk, the technical risk, the market risk, everything, because you need less time and less money, and you have fewer potential issues that can really derail your project.
Yeah.
So you start with a really much more simple version 1. You don't expect maybe a lot of sales, but you want to start also, some having a little bit of distribution, having some feedback from the market, and so on, and then you do a more complete version 2 or version 3, or maybe you add some extra accessories that make your version 1 much more valuable. There's I can't really give examples, but we have clients working on these kinds of things. So, for example, for food preparation products, you might have different accessories to take in the material differently, different kinds of material, or maybe to churn out the output in different ways, different formats, basically. So you can make your product more of a wool product over version 2, version 3. So your version 1 is, will be on the market faster. There's a lower chance that it's going to be copied. There's a lower chance that it's going to be, successful and very profitable. But at least you can already show even potential investors, hey, look, I have this, and I have a little bit of distribution here. I have an e-commerce website. I have this retailer that resells it. Or I'm working on this little partnership here with that whatever marketplace. And you see, I'm starting to gather some data and really understand the market. And my next move is this. And I'm working on a prototype. Well, it's more likely that an investor will say, oh, okay, well, when you have a prototype that looks good and works as you expect, come back to me. That's interesting. And you might get a check at that moment. Right?
Yeah.
So there are times when that general approach sort of makes sense, of going fast, taking shortcuts, just focusing on getting to market. If you're still going to be low profile, let's say, right? If you're going to be high profile, probably not a good idea, right? So and that's what Steve Dickinson says in his article.
Yeah, it's like you can go to market quickly, but don't go at the expense of taking all of the precautions required to protect your IP, your business, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can read a little bit from Steve's article here.
Okay.
He says the go-to-market argument is based on an approach popular in the 70s and the 80s for many sorts of products, and in the 80s and early 90s in the shoe and sportswear market, when the view was that any style or model had at most a 6 months shelf life. Okay, the approach in those days was to change models regularly, figuring that it took the counterfeiters and copiers at least 3 to 4 months to get the fakes to market. So as long as they change their styles every 6 months, they could stay ahead of competition. However, this approach is no longer used because the counterfeiters / copiers can now get their clones to market in a matter of days, not months, which is kind of true. With fast retailers like that disaster, Shein, and others. I mean, they plan for production to take just 1 week is crazy. They work with really small workshops around Guangzhou. They put together a design, they send it over there, get some available fabric, and tack, cut and sew, and ship it out directly. It's really, really fast, right? And then the logical conclusion is, I'm going to quote again, the big shoe and sportswear manufacturers long ago abandoned this first-to-market approach in favor of the sort of aggressive IP registration and contract protection our China lawyers advocate for everyone. Yeah, true. And basically what Steve is saying is there's mainly 2 risks. One is that your own manufacturer is going to copy you directly. And yes, that's happened. We've seen it even with some of our clients. They've had these kind of issues. If you don't do the proper registration, well, maybe your supplier sees, oh, there's a market here. That's interesting. Okay, I'm going to development for this buyer, but I'm going to take advantage of it also. So maybe they register the trademark. They might even register a patent in their name or in the name of their cousin somewhere. And you can never make the link. If they're smart, that's what they do.
Yes.
Sometimes they do it in their name, so it's easy actually to find out. I've seen examples of that.
Yeah, we blogged on that just this week, in fact. So
yes,
I'll include the link to that in the show notes. But design patents, and that's a kind of IP infringement that could happen. So yeah, you're absolutely right, and it can be your own supplier.
Yeah, right. So if you get your supplier excited, about your project, well, it's a how do you say, a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
On the one hand, they're going to put more resources into your project. It's going to move faster. On the other hand, they might think, well, we don't really need that guy. He brought the idea to us. He helps us refine, the prototypes and give us some good feedback. But then when he says, oh, the prototypes are great, we tested it, they're great, and I show them to some customers, they love it. At this point, we don't need him anymore. And that's much more likely to happen if you work with an ODM, original design manufacturer, because, they are in that space. They own some of the IP rights. Usually you kind of piggyback on their past development work. They can just cut you out at any time, and they already have the distribution channels. They already have some customers in that same space, so it's easy for them to show it to some of their other customers and to start to sell right away. And maybe maybe they cut you out. Now we've seen that. It never goes to production for some reason. They make it very complicated, and you can never get production out of them. Or they still make production for you, little by little, but you're not even the first to market because they favor their other customers, their current customers, proven customers. They favor them because they're going to sell more and probably also at a higher price because they say, hey, it's our product. We just developed it, so they can get a premium out of that. So of course, this is very tempting for an ODM manufacturer. For an OEM that is in the same space and also has some other customers in that same space, yes, it can also be tempting, especially if there's really zero contracts. You don't have a non-use and non-circumvention agreement with them. You don't have development agreement saying that you own the IP rights. You don't have a manufacturing agreement saying that you have the exclusivity in buying these products from them, and you have the right to make these products in other factories and things like that. They can do what they want. Well, it becomes pretty tempting for them, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, if you go to them with a unique product idea, especially if it's something that's new and unique, they'll be, well, thank you very much, Mr. Customer, for your product idea, and we'll take it from here.
Right. So that's risk number one, where you really see your product on the market faster, earlier than you put it yourself on the market, because of your own supplier. Okay, so that's a real risk if you don't have any kind of agreement. There's no non-use and non-circumvention agreement to prevent them from using your product idea. There's no development agreement or manufacturing agreement that says that you own the IP, only you can be the buyer of this product, and so on. That's a risk. Okay. The second risk that Steve points to is all of these companies that have a business model of looking for new products that are promising and copying them very fast. So they look at, oh, this is a very successful Kickstarter campaign. Oh, this company just announced that they would distribute this new product. Hey, it looks cool. These signs of success, signs of market traction. And let me quote again from Steve's article. The other type of Chinese company that will copy your product is one of the many electronics manufacturers in China specializing in reverse engineering the designs of other companies. This type of company has a very sophisticated system. They understand that manufacturing a clone product is not enough. Even more important is the requirement that they sell the clone product. These clone shops, therefore, have developed a worldwide network of retailers that specialize in selling clones of the most recent innovative products, and they make active use of the internet. Since these manufacturers need not worry much about quality control or brand reputation, they can normally get their clone to market at almost exactly the same time as your original product, if not before, and at half the price you charge or are hoping to charge. Okay. And then he explains that they know how to use actually the buzz from the original product. They position themselves in front of it. They get some bloggers and YouTubers to review, and to compare their product much cheaper to the other one. And of course they are on Alibaba, and of course they are also on Amazon, and so on and so forth. Okay, and that's true.
You see, you might think that creating a lot of buzz and building up your online reputation for a forthcoming product would actually help you in this case, but in actual fact, what you're saying is it can be a hindrance in this respect.
Well, it's dangerous if you don't have your product already ready to go on the market. What we've seen is the innovator works on the product development, gets to a prototype, and then they think, okay, right now I'm going to do a Kickstarter campaign, and I'm going to launch, I'm going to get some money. It's going to finance the tooling and the first production batch. And then I get some money from the first production batch to finance the second production batch. And that's dangerous. What happens is that you do the Kickstarter campaign, and let's say you're successful. Everybody in the world can see that. And these clone shops, as Steve says, are definitely looking at Kickstarter at least once a week to see what pops up and what's raising money. They see it's successful. They already have a lot of information about what it's supposed to look like from your photos, videos, and so on. They will also, by the way, buy a few products on Kickstarter. Just to get their hands on your product when it's available.
Yeah.
And then they start to do their own development, their own quick prototypes. They would do it quick and dirty. Again, there is a Chinese mindset of why does it cost $15 a piece? I can make it for $6, so I can sell it. If I sell it for 8 plus all the expenses of putting it on the market and everything, I can sell it at 11. So it's cheaper than these guys who are selling it, starting at 15. Or the price difference can even be wider. So let's make some volume. Let's capture the market. Let's get these guys out of the market because they will sell everything and they will sell nothing. And we'll be the only ones. And over time, we can raise the price if we want. And we'll be copied ourselves anyway. So we can't really go with a high premium. That's the thinking. So they hurry up, they do something quick and dirty. And the innovator is still working out, hey, reliability is not great. We need to go back and make a new prototype. And this material that we picked is really tricky to work with for that kind of finishing. So we're going to spend another, 6 weeks to really get it right. Or maybe we have to change to another material and blah, blah, blah. They went a little bit too early with the Kickstarter campaign. And they have a lot of technical difficulties maybe. To get the product exactly what they want it to be, and then they do the tooling carefully, and they make some adjustments on the tooling until it really looks nice, and Okay, the testing station is not ready yet. The firmware. We added this little thing here, otherwise some people might complain. And then mass production, shipment, the product arrive on the market, 5 months later. Okay, 5 months is enough time for one of these clone shops to reverse engineer, redevelop a new product and get through their first production batch. So they might be on the market at the same time as you, or just after, or just before. Well, you've lined up all these PR effort, and there's some buzz, but then some people are going to reach out to the bloggers and YouTubers and so on. They're going to say, hey, we sell the same product here, and it's 30% cheaper. Here's a few samples, please. If you want to review it, go ahead. And then this guy will say, okay, then innovator versus copycat. I mean, not in these terms, but A versus B. Actually, B for this kind and this kind of use is not bad at all.
Yeah.
Right. And then they're gonna set up, their product on Amazon, etc., etc. And people who look for that new kind of product will find them, even in Google. So let's imagine Dyson had made that mistake, and the Copycat were arriving on the product on the market at the same time, and let's say it's 2021. Well, Dyson would set up, an exclusive distribution partnership, maybe with one big retailer for a while, but people would look for, a vacuum with no bags, and then if they search for that in Amazon, they will find it, and maybe even if they search Dyson, these guys will have the word Dyson in their copy somewhere in the description of the product. Same thing in Google, perfectly legal in Google, totally shocking, frankly speaking. But if I'm General Motors, Cadillac, and I want to be seen by people who search for BMW, I just pay Google to be seen when someone searches BMW in the sponsored links.
Absolutely, standard practice.
Yeah, and well, the Copycat can do exactly the same thing. When someone searches Dyson, they can pop up. When someone searches bagless vacuum cleaner, they can pop up right there. So the buzz of the innovator actually serves the Copycat very well. So that is really something that people have to deal with. It's not easy. It will happen even if you make your products in your own country, in your garage, because as soon as you come out as a high-profile, cool new product with market traction, that will happen. Okay, so or you might have it made by a perfectly ethical manufacturer in Shenzhen and nothing transpires. But maybe down the road, also in Shenzhen, one of these clone shops is going to notice it on Kickstarter, on whatever, and on YouTube or whatever. Yeah, it's blocked in China, but don't worry, they have ways to get to it. And they will start to work on developing a very close product. So this has nothing to do with manufacturing your product in China or not. It has to do with just living in a world where there's these clone shops, and yes, they happen to be, for the most part, maybe 99%, I don't know, but for the most part in China. That's true. A lot of them in Shenzhen. That's true. But that has nothing to do with your supply chain, actually. So what do people do about that? They think of patents, but with patents, you have to be very careful because it's extremely expensive. Now you can do provisional patents that are, you can give you the option for 1 year of applying for the real patent, and not all products actually can have a patent granted, even if you do the demand, right? It really has to be novel, in the eyes of the people who evaluate it. So it's not an option for every new product, even if it's really truly innovative. Trademark, of course you're going to register your trademark, including in China. That's really, it's not really expensive, and it can give you a lot of options later on. Keep your options open. What else can you do? Well, maybe again you go with maybe version 1, version 2 in 2 steps. Or maybe you go with like a pro version and a simple version, and you or maybe do like Apple. The iPhone, how much now? 13, right?
Yes, just come out.
Is coming out. Well, yeah. The iPhone 12 is still on the market cheaper, right? And maybe even the iPhone 11. I have no clue. But the components are cheaper, but the whole thing is still good. So if people want a good phone, that's still an option, and it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe the iPad mini. I saw that just came out with a new iPad mini, but the previous one is still there. Well, the previous one, you can price it at the level of the Copycat's products, just to prevent them from having a wide open market, basically.
I think the AirPods are probably an example of coming out with the V1.0 and then iterating later on once you've got market share and market recognition. I mean, look, it's not going to be such a problem for Apple, is it? Because whatever Apple make, people are going to buy it, even though there are definitely going to be cheaper options and maybe cheaper copycats, of course. But, the original AirPods, they then came out with the AirPods Pro later on, which were, sort of like 25% more expensive or something. And so that was once they'd already become kind of ubiquitous. Everybody was used to seeing all, influencers and people online with the white AirPods sticking out of their ears, and it's become quite a thing now. So they build up that recognition before iterating. I suppose that's an example of what you're saying. I mean, I see how being first to market is kind of a fallacy in this case, because the copycats can move just so quickly now that being first doesn't necessarily give you that protection.
Yeah, very true. I would agree with that. Again, it all has to be seen in context, as I was saying at the start of the episode. In some cases, it does make sense. In others, it doesn't make sense. In some cases, there's so much at risk that you really want to work very, very closely with a very good lawyer. In other cases, it doesn't make that much sense. Now, should you still know what the risks are and what the usual tools to approach that are? Of course. Should you work with a lawyer to get something minimal in place, at least non-disclosure, non-use, non-circumvention agreement that's legally enforceable in China and things like that? I would say yes. does it make sense to go with a patent? In many cases, actually, no. Again, as I said, provisional 1-year patents, can be a good idea to reassure investors, but you don't actually need to put $50,000 down into patents. If you don't even know if your product is going to be successful, right? So that's a very very common trap. And there was even something I read about that in LinkedIn. Someone commented on that, say, "Oh, yeah," and a customer, that they were developing a product, prototype 1, they applied for patent. Then they did some changes in the design. Prototype 2, again applied for patent. And then prototype 3, prototype 4, and then they ran out of money after paying 4 times for the patents.
Huh.
So that is just crazy. You got to be you get to look at all the risks in your business, in your project, and you can't just over focus on one risk at the expense of others. I think that's really what we've been saying all along here.
Yeah, and as well as having the protection that you've spoken about, which we've discussed before on the podcast in various written content. Yeah, I guess you've got to have that experience to know when to go, when to hit the sort of green button, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It does take a little bit of experience to know what actually makes sense, and that's why talk to people in the supply chain, talk to lawyers, talk to designers and so on, and make up your own mind. Try to approach this from a perspective of where are the risks and how can we mitigate them.
Great. Well, so there you have it. That's why being first to market these days is maybe not quite as effective of a strategy as you may think, given how quickly companies in China can pump out competing products as soon as they know that yours has got a little bit of interest and traction on the market. We've mentioned a number of blog posts and things like that, especially the original post from Steve Dickinson on China Law Blog. I'll include the links to those. And for everybody listening, I mean, how have you been affected by product protection and IP infringement? Have you had any issues? Do let us know by commenting, or you can contact us at sofeast.com, of course. So thanks for your reaction to that, Renaud. That's a very interesting one today.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed today's podcast, don't forget to like and share, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all other places that you get your podcasts from. See you next time.